You've all seen those indoor putting greens. Way back in the 1990s, we ran a challenge for my staff that if they made sales, they had the chance to putt for a prize. Little did I know back then that that was called gamification. And just like gamification engages and incentivizes our members, the impact is the same for our staff. Reports show gamification correlates with engagement and boosts positive worker perceptions. 60% increase in engagement with gamified experiences, 48% reduction in turnover risk via improved engagement scores, and 89% of employees say gamification boosts productivity. So for greater productivity and team retention, let's talk gamification for our team in episode 555 of the Fitness Business Podcast.
Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast with your host, Justin Tamsett. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, JT is a globally recognised authority with a mission to lower healthcare costs worldwide by getting more people moving and moving more often in quality facilities with qualified professionals. Every episode, JT digs deep with our guests to bring you insights that will help you lead, innovate, and boost your bottom line. So let's dive in. Take it away, JT.
Alex Grande is an entrepreneur and workplace innovation expert who combines gamification with human resource technology to help organisations build stronger, more connected cultures. As the founder of Recognise, a social employee engagement SaaS platform, he helps companies improve communication, recognition and retention through behavioural science and thoughtful design. With a degree in psychology and published research in unconscious bias and social cognition, Alex brings an evidence-based, human-centred approach to creating recognition programs that drive everlasting cultural change. You're simply going to love what he shares in this episode. But first, a word from our future Fitness Business Podcast host.
It's me again, Zoe, and I want you to take a peek behind the curtain and see everything our FBP insiders get. I've organised with JT a free 7-day trial, and I'd love you to jump in and explore it. Inside, you'll get early access to episodes, no ads, downloadable resources from our guests, and invitations to our monthly workshops. It's the best way to experience the podcast on a whole new level. Head to patreon.com/fitnessbusinesspodcast, hit membership options, and select the 7-day free pass. Come and join us on the inside.
Our exclusive masterclass to becoming an authority in your community is coming up. It's free and it's going to be gold. So go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/online events. There's a link in the show notes and join live or watch the replay. Now to our main interview. Welcome, Alex, to the Fitness Business Podcast. I got to tell you, I have a sweet spot for gamification. I love it. I love that external motivation when your intrinsic motivation isn't strong enough and you just need that extra thing to help us out. So I can't wait to hear about the science of what you do and then how that's going to relate to the practicalities with our team. So let me start with, how would you describe a reward and recognition program for our businesses?
Definitely, yeah. Especially in the fitness industry when there might be a lot of turnover, it's all about recognition and reward around catching people in a structured way around the good work that they're doing, right? And celebrating it. As business leaders, we're often busy and we assume people are good when actually we underestimate how meaningful it is to stop and say thanks and the impact it can create.
So is it more than just saying thank you, or thank you is just like the first step?
It's the first step. Oftentimes companies have a set of values or behaviors or initiatives you're trying to promote, and that can be all tied to that. It's about helping remind managers and business leaders, when is the right moment to recognize and reward people. And it's not just saying thanks, it's putting something behind it, such as a reward or a cash. I'd love to talk more about how gamification works in that environment. Well, one of those things is, as you mentioned, extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. Dan Pink, his book Drive, talked a lot about autonomy, mastery, and purpose being the main components in motivating people intrinsically. And we can talk more about that. But also there's this concept of SAPs, which stands for status, access, power, and stuff. And those are the 4 motivators or 4 triggers you can use in a gamification model. And many of those can build intrinsic motivation. So you can do things that are extrinsic, but also intrinsic. And I'd love to talk more about that in this session.
Absolutely. I want to dive into SAPs. And was the final S in SAPs stuff?
Stuff. So yeah, things like something from Amazon or cash. That might be the least motivating of the 4, but it's still an incredible trigger and incredible motivator. And it all kind of depends on where that person is in their career. Maybe sometimes people better appreciate the cash prize, whereas other ones may appreciate the status. And it all kind of depends on that person.
We're going to dive into that. What is the science, though, behind these programs? You said you're a psychologist, you've done that training. What's the science behind the programs, just in layman's terms for us?
Sure, yeah. I mean, people are wired to want to receive positive feedback around their work, especially the younger generations with things like video games. So, whenever you're told you did a great job, there's that dopamine release. I think we all know what it feels like from a parent or someone of significance. Research has shown that recognition from a manager is more meaningful than an executive, oftentimes because the manager knows more about that person, right? And the science just shows that, actually we've done research on our team with our customers. The medical industry, for instance, can have high burnout, right? And when employees feel appreciated, there's lower mental health issues with those employees as well. So all science leads to just a better culture, a better work environment when there's that culture of recognition.
I love that. Manager feedback is more powerful for the individual than from an executive.
Right. And I really think that's because it's real, right? Like, I think we all know that we can always sense when something is truly authentic. And when it comes from an executive, they may come in, they may review your project and say, great job, you're doing amazing. And then they're off, right? You haven't spent a lot of time with that person. Whereas a manager really understands you and they've given you probably a lot of feedback too. And I think generally when we talk about performance, it's often negative. I think most people, when they hear the term performance reviews coming up, terror strikes in their heart. They're not usually excited about talking about their performance, right? So when it's positive, people can feel a lot better about it. And also kind of as a side note, all about this is being real, a real person, connecting with your team. When you do that, you don't necessarily need to use, as a manager, techniques like feedback sandwich, where we say something nice and then something critical and then something nice again. You don't need to use that kind of stuff when you have a real relationship with that person. So if they've received feedback in the past, then they receive praise. That praise feels authentic compared to coming from someone that really doesn't know what they're doing in the details.
You call that a feedback sandwich?
The feedback sandwich.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. In my house, we call it the poo sandwich. We'll be having dinner and my wife will say something good and my daughter will look across the table and goes, here comes the poo, Dad. So she understands it. And it's almost predictable these days. Ken Blanchard with the 1 Minute Manager, he's almost made it predictable that they're saying something positive, there's going to be something negative. So almost what you're saying is there's a positive and then there's this reward on top of that, which kind of spins them out a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we all know from being, with our spouses and things like that, if you said, I really love how you handled that yesterday. And then they're like, but, and if you just stop right there, no, that's all I want to say. That's refreshing.
Now, gamification for me means we're kind of turning everyday life, or in this instance, everyday things that we do at work, into some sort of game, some way to make it fun, if you will. Is that how you would define gamification?
Yeah, I think it really is games. It's challenges, it's progress, it's badging, it's points, there's tiers. And just to tell a little story, after college, I taught English in Korea, actually, as a way to get paid to travel. And I didn't have the money to be able to travel at that point, right? So I wanted to be able to travel. And I was given a book on gamification with children. I have to say that my classroom was probably the most fun classroom of all the teachers. One of the things I did was, I think we all know how the pressure it is when you do sports, individual sports, like maybe tennis, right? Or karate. Whereas if you do it as a team, like soccer, baseball, it's not, the pressure's not all on you, right? So I would split the classroom into two. So there's two teams, right? And then your team can win just by participating, right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Or if you're a gym owner, the person who can lift the most or can do the most advanced yoga class isn't necessarily the person that wins the game, right? So there's things you can do around kind of these different levels, right, that you can achieve. I think anyone who owns a gym of any kind or fitness, having a whiteboard and having people on the leaderboard for different types of activities. And I think a lot of times gamification can be things that, I think we all know what it's like in a game when you're surprised, when you didn't expect it, right? And that's very powerful. So if you join a gym and you go 5 days in a row, suddenly there's a prize for you. You weren't even expecting it. And now your name's on the leaderboard, right? You don't have to lift the most. You just need to participate the most. So I really love participation as someone who maybe wasn't as great in school. I just love being, and the grades were all related to how the smartest person who could write the best, right? It wasn't the person that put the most effort in necessarily. So I really love that kind of idea of using progress bars and tiers. Going back to SAPs, status, access, power, and stuff. So maybe by, participation, you have access to additional classes that you wouldn't have had access to if you weren't participating. Right. It's kind of like in the military. If you can get through boot camp, then now you can be part of the military, right? You have to reach certain level before you're allowed into the military and the service.
I think we do, in our industry, we do really well recognizing, even to a certain degree, well, no, we don't do well, but we do pretty well, SAPs for our members. So like you just said, you come 5 days a week and all of a sudden there's a surprise of a voucher for the $10 off a smoothie or $5 off a smoothie or whatever the case may be. What I find fascinating is the SAPs concept for our team to get the most out of the people that work for us. What role does this genuine recognition play in attracting top talent and retaining top talent, especially in our industry where we have such high turnover?
Yeah, I mean, turnover is going to be a given, right? But I can say that Gallup has found that you're half as likely to leave if you're recognized in a role. I oftentimes think about employees as a tour, kind of going back to the military analogy. People are thinking about their next step as well, right? And I'm thinking about that for my employees. So, and then just by being honest with them and saying, hey, I want to help you elevate your career, right, can be very, very powerful. I also know that research has shown that every time you get a salary bump, you're more motivated, right? So if you only get a, cost of living increase once a year, I mean, it can be very challenging, but I think smaller companies can do this better than other companies where what if you did a much smaller increase, but on a quarterly basis? Now you're getting quarterly bumps of motivation, right? Then you're like, okay, well, I want to stick around because that next quarter, I'm going to get that next, percentage increase, 1% increase in my salary. I think it'd be very powerful also to have things that they can accomplish to, very clear things that they can accomplish. One thing I love is that, getting that high Google review or Yelp review or whatever website you care about as far as reviews. I can talk more about some automations there, but basically if you get a high rating and you're mentioned in a review, you get some kind of, maybe you get a coffee card, right? Yeah. And you can go back to the SAPs again. So status is, I think we should get rid of the idea of like employee of the month, right? I think that's kind of antiquated, right? My favorite coffee shop, they have a employee of the month and a picture of one of the employees, but one of the employees crossed out best employee and wrote worst, right, as like a joke. But there can be, easily there can be a weekly shout out, a daily shout out on something that was really awesome that someone did. And that's status, right? And then you come into the access. So, maybe you're allowed to get additional passes for your friends to come for free when you do great work. Or maybe you can go to the gym at a certain time that other people can't. Or maybe you can have your friends come in the gym after hours or into a special class that only, high achievers that are allowed to access. So there's ways to do things that are kind of low cost there. And then the power is power to make a certain decision, make changes in the organization. You don't need to give them a job title change or whatever, but then you can kind of help them be guided in that. Hey, we want to do a referral program. And since you've been a high achiever in these ways, I want you to design the referral program, for instance. Or maybe you're passionate about graphic design and you've shown to be a leader in that. So I want you to help me make the graphics, right? And again, that's helping them elevate their career into the future. It's all about caring about your employees into the day.
Alex, one thing we love to do in the fitness industry is research. We like to research other industries and then we rip off and duplicate. So tell me, outside the fitness industry, have you got any examples of gamification that people have done with their staff where we go, oh, that's interesting, I like that, I could rip that off and duplicate it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to plug our product, but
Oh, plug it. Go ahead, plug it.
well, you can do this through other tools. If we talk more about when the later Microsoft 365 or things like that, or any kind of software you're using, Slack. But with our platform, you tie in your company values into it or certain behaviors, and then the employees can recognize each other. So it's nice to have like a peer-to-peer program where it's not just, as a business leader or as a manager, you already got a lot going on. And also, if you have to do any kind of one-on-ones with your employees, companies often do one-on-ones, but then it ends up just being like, how are you? What do you, it's much better to come. Hey, I saw that you sent this recognition to one of your colleagues. That was great. What motivated you to do that? Or other way around, I saw a number of recognitions from your colleagues on X, and I want to talk about that a little bit more and dive into that. And what we do personally in our team is once those recognitions are being created, every month we have a gathering and we have everyone, if you're all in one place, you can get some beer or some snacks. If you're remote, then you can't do that, but you can at least get on the call together. And as a leader, I will go through and I'll talk about the recognitions, and I'm very animated when I do so. And we read the recognitions out loud, and then we pick a random recognition. Our tool allows us to do, but it's easy just to scroll and put your thumb on one. And then you give that person that, I love raffles. I think raffles are a really great way to motivate people. There's a lot of ways you can do that with your clients and with your employees. So again, you're not expecting it. And also when you do good work and you immediately get a dollar value from it, then it's more of an extrinsic motivation. But when you do good work and the prize is very small, or maybe you just have the chance to win a prize, you internalize the motivation around. There's a great book called Influence, The Art of Persuasion, and I highly recommend people read this book. So that comes from that. And on that line, even having people, social proof, having your ads show your employees, your ads show your clients and quotes, have your employees write a paragraph about why it's great to work there. Right. And then they enter into a raffle at the end of the month for that. Right. And if you aren't immediately paid for your testimonial, you actually internalize what you wrote, right? And so that's another nice tool to use as well.
Is there any science behind the power of peer-to-peer recognition? Although we already talked about manager feedback being superior to executive, peer-to-peer feedback being superior to manager feedback?
That's a great question. I don't have anything pulled up for there's a lot of research out there around that. I don't have anything pulled up at this moment on top of my mind, but I do know that it democratizes the recognition. People really do appreciate recognition from their peers. It goes manager, executive, and then peers, but it doesn't mean that those are all three aren't valuable. Again, the recognitions from your peers are people that you work with, right? And it creates more rapport. There is research that's shown that when you have friends at work, you stay longer at that company, right? And so that when someone says something nice to you that you weren't expecting, especially if it's in an official structured way that is then broadcasted to everybody else, can be very impactful.
Marcus Buckingham talks about that in First Break All the Rules in his 13 questions. Do I have a best friend at work? And was I recognized for doing my best in the last week? Techie question, because you did mention it before. Can we leverage Microsoft 365 to embed recognition into our daily connectivity?
Definitely. There's so many things you can do with Microsoft 365. Our app, Recognize, is fully integrated into Teams, SharePoint, Viva Engage, and you can utilize that if you want to purchase something. But if you want to do something, and then we automate anniversaries, birthdays. We offer concert tickets and gift cards, experiences. You can redeem swag through it, logos, sweatshirts, things like that. But you can do things completely for free as well. So Microsoft Teams does have the praise badges. You can't change them, so they're a little bit limited in that way. But I really love using Power Automate. It sounds, if you've never used it, it sounds complicated. I don't know, it's called Power Automate. Sometimes I question the branding side of Microsoft, but you should definitely, if you haven't checked it out, get into Power Automate. It's a lot easier than you think. For instance, you could have an Excel spreadsheet where people record in Excel when they've gotten that 5-star review on Google, right? And then when that occurs, in Power Automate, you can say, okay, a new row added in this spreadsheet. And then what happens next? Well, then it posts to Microsoft Teams, right? And it emails the owner, right? When that happens.
And that can be all automated.
All automated. Yeah. Yeah. So once it goes into Excel, it goes to Teams, it goes to Outlook. And so I just really love that. Or when there's a post to a certain channel in teams, right? That also then, maybe you have a recognition channel. For instance, we have a praise channel where it's when a customer has said something awesome about our company. Right. Which is actually a great way to motivate your team. Like maybe you're feeling down about what's happening or whatever, and maybe you're not getting as many signups, but those praises from the customer can be really powerful. And then when that happens, it can then automatically go into an Excel spreadsheet. So then at the end of the month, the leader can go in, they can easily see how many people, who's gotten the most, right? And it's almost like a leaderboard system. Right. So there's a lot of ways to tie one thing to another and post across Viva Engage and Teams and Excel and so forth.
I think that's a really interesting step for us because I think a lot of owners would love automation because perhaps that's their excuse, not I'm making excuses for small business owners on running these programs. The idea of some things being automated, that emails come to them or they send emails, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things like, for instance, maybe not totally in topic here, but Outlook, can you just get inundated or Gmail, whatever you're using, you just get inundated with emails and you can automatically, when you add a label to an email, it automatically then is added to a document. We use Microsoft, but you also use Notion, if you're familiar with that tool, where Notion can help me sort my emails or help me highlight important emails through connecting from Power Automate's a Microsoft tool. If you're not a Microsoft company, you can use Zapier, where Gmail can go to Zapier and then from Zapier it can go to Notion. And again, you can use it for recognition or you can use it for just making things much easier for you to just get through all the noise and Zapier and Power Automate have AI now, where it can actually, when you get into email, automatically it goes into Zapier or goes into Power Automate, and then it decides with AI how important that is and what bucket that can go into, which can be very powerful.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's a crazy world that we live in now.
A lot easier than people think.
Our industry is full of casual and part-time staff. If we go down this route of a reward and recognition program and gamifying what they do, does that keep those part-timers more engaged with their workplace?
I mean, you want everyone included. It doesn't matter if you're part-time or full-time. You want to have a program that includes everybody and a program that allows people to come back, because sometimes people are at the organization and then they leave and then they come back a year later. It happens pretty frequently from what I've seen. And so, yeah, you want to be able to have those people included, just as if they were full time. There's no reason to not include them, if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, you are. I'm just wondering if having a program like this actually heightens that engagement that they would have, because if you don't have anything, do they really give a shit where they work? Whereas now, does it heighten that engagement?
I mean, people are people. People want to be appreciated. People want to be heard. So I think one of the most important things to ask part-time or full-time is when they join the team, tell me how I can help you excel. Where do you want to go? What kind of journey do you want to take in your life? And I think a lot of times when these part-time workers or maybe they're minimum wage, they're just trying to get by, right? No one's ever asking them where they want to go. And so having a manager, I think there's that expression, join a company, leave because of a manager. Well, it can be the other way around too. It may not be the most exciting role ever, but if that manager, you'll never forget your favorite manager. And from my personal experience, the higher up I got in my career, the better my managers were. Why couldn't I have had that when I did construction or when I did tree work when I was young? Why couldn't my manager be excellent? Why not, right? Everyone can be a great manager no matter what industry you work in. It all just comes down to, do you care about people? Are you human? Treat people like humans. The greatest story is from another business leader, Dan Martell. He just wrote all of his prospects and said, do you like ice cream? And all these people wrote, that's not a salesy email. And wrote back, yeah, I love ice cream. Why? Well, I'm going to be at South by Southwest in Austin, and I'm going to have a ice cream social. So I'd love for you to come by and meet. And that's how he wins business. So you can do the same thing with your employees. On the ice cream note, you can be very substantial and sincere. Where do you want to go in your journey, in your career? How can I help you get there? But also, what size shirt do you wear? What's hobbies that you love? And then what kind of ice cream is your favorite ice cream, right? You write that stuff down. And then when it comes to be their birthday, you have the ice cream that they love the most, right? Or you have a t-shirt, some swag that fits them. without having to ask again. That's a really low cost, impactful way to connect with new employees.
We used to ask all of our new employees, we had I think it was maybe 10, 12 questions that we would ask them because we wanted to personalize that reward rather than giving them the generic supplement or the generic massage or the generic this or the generic that. We wanted to really personalize it. And so we would ask those questions. We never asked ice cream. We asked what their favorite alcohol was, but maybe that's because it's Australian.
Also, yeah, just like, hey, we love celebrating things here. So, if you have a wedding anniversary or one of your kids' birthdays, we love to be able to help you out in that way any way we can. Obviously, you can kind of brainstorm ways that are low cost that can just give a shout out on those types of things, especially if you're a studio, hey, I know it's your wife's birthday. And so, here's a couple passes to some, again, yoga or a fitness class or access to, again, access, right? And those are usually lower cost because you're not having to spend anything. You're just getting access to the facilities you already have. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, really good. Now, after listening to today's interview, Alex, the first action our FBP family want to do is contact you. How do they do that?
Yeah. You can simply just go to recognizeapp.com and contact us through there. My email is alex@recognizeapp.com. If you have any questions or anything, there's no sales pitch or anything. We're just here to help people out. You can find me on LinkedIn and reach out. I love to talk to people anytime, especially if they're in Seattle, meet in person, or I'm often traveling. So alex@recognizeapp.com.
We will put all Alex's contact details in the show notes for today's show. What's the second action our FBP family need to do in order to implement a cracking recognition program? Now, I've got a little bit of pressure on you here, Alex. Can you give us a tip for our listeners that you've never told anybody else?
Well, let me start with something that I do tell people, which is, and this is a lot like fitness, is just get started and don't overthink it. We see a lot of our customers just, what about this? What about that? What about this? And now they're riddled with choice and they don't do anything at all. So you really want to just do something as little as a win of the day ritual or create a way for peer shoutouts in Microsoft Teams or Slack. Give those mini coffee vouchers, and then, friendly competition across staff. Make your staff be in 2 different teams and then see which team can remember the most members' names in a week, right? You can come up with some really creative things. I guess one thing I haven't told people is you can pipe some of these ideas into ChatGPT and then that can output a bunch of new ideas you may not have ever considered. Really like going 2 or 3, 4 levels down with, Claude or ChatGPT, whatever you use, or Gemini comes free with with Google. And I know there's a free tool, Copilot with Microsoft 365, where you can just dive down a little bit deeper each level. I would just start broad, like, hey, give me 10 tips on any company. Like you said, transferring from one industry to another, 10 tips that work for any industry. Okay, how can that apply to my CrossFit studio? It can really help also with those conversations that you have. Maybe you're not the best at giving feedback, play it out, role play with ChatGPT ahead of time so that you come across in the best way. I also think that you don't even have to necessarily, the more we do in person or over voice, things can be so confusing when you get a text from a manager. Kind of a side note, but I wrote this on LinkedIn, in the remote world especially, don't write someone and say, got a second, or can we talk? I mean, if I get a text message from my significant other saying, can we talk? Again, I feel fear, right? But if I say, hey, I want to talk, but I want to talk about our referral program. You got a second to talk about our referral program. Then it's like, oh, okay, no worries. So again, just being human, connecting with people, having empathy. And if you're not good at that, using ChatGPT to get a little bit better at it.
I love it. That's some great advice. You have given some wonderful words of wisdom today. I want to return some for you. So I've heard, when you talked about 2 teams, I heard of a club and they used to do the pizza and beans competition. So what they divided the team into 2 and they had the same goal. And the team that won went to dinner and they got pizza and beer. The team that lost got beans and water, and they had to sit alternate around a table. So there was like pizza just to the right or just to the left, and there was beans to the left or the right. It's like, apparently it was hysterical. People were trying to steal pieces of pizza, but no one was stealing any of the beans.
I absolutely love that. I have a customer that the people who are recognized, who send the most recognitions and receive the most recognitions, get to go on an outing together. And that creates that camaraderie, that creates that friendship, and then that's higher retention. But we do have another customer that has a thumbs down badge. Hey, you really screwed up there. And it's like, but like in a fun public way, it's fun. And then the comments and emojis and all that stuff. It's supposed to be lighthearted and real because, yes, too much praise can feel very artificial and forced. And it might be a culture where that doesn't work, and you want something a little more teasing. Maybe you have a teasing culture. And again, it's all about your values. If you value that, then don't hire people that can't handle a little teasing. That's why important. I love that beans versus the pizza. That's hilarious.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and having you share all this information. We'll put all of Alex's details in the show notes, including those couple of books that he mentioned, Drive by Daniel Pink. And just for the FBP listeners, we are stalking Daniel Pink to get him on the show and interview him. And I think the other book Alex talked about was Influence, the Art of Persuasion. We'll also put that in the show notes as well. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you, JT. It was great to be here.
All right, FBP community, it's time we hear from you. What gamification do you do in your gym or club or studio? Love to hear from you. So go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/leave us a voicemail and tell us. We want to hear what you're doing to gamify experiences with your team. We're proud to highlight Rex Roundtable Trusted Suppliers. They're part of a network of partners who believe in elevating the fitness industry and backing this show. Head to thefitnessbusinesspodcast.com to connect with them and support them as they support us. Les Mills USA creates pre-choreographed group fitness classes. Referizer provides automated marketing, referral, lead and reputation management for local businesses. Energy Lounger, a full-body red and near-infrared light therapy device. Real Leader Fitness manufactures and sells commercial fitness and gym equipment. The Covery offers wellness, hormone replacement, weight loss, and aesthetic treatments. Next episode, we turn our attention to you personally. Our focus is on burnout with Emily. She explains what is burnout, how it affects us, why we live in denial, and how we can escape burnout. It's a fascinating wise words episode. Now, before you go, here's something most listeners don't know. Our episode notes aren't just summaries. They're where we share the tools, tech, and ideas, all the things that we test right here at FBP HQ. No CRMs, no fluff, just things that actually make life easier. If you want access, head to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/subscribe. What we leave behind is not set in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.